I am Scout Sobel, the founder of Scouts Agency, a female-focused PR agency that specializes in getting women as guests on podcasts. I am also the author of The Emotional Entrepreneur, and on this episode of Ever Forward Radio, I talk about the emotional journey entrepreneurship takes you on, money mindset, how to feel safe in your emotions, and loving life unconditionally, no matter the feelings you are feeling.
3, 2, 1.
I think that title is one that just hits you in the gut. Anybody who is an entrepreneur, anybody, hell, even anybody who is just, I got this side hustle. I got this thing that I'm doing outside of work hours, outside of my air quote here, normal life. And you realize that it not only matters to you, but just matters. You can't not get emotional about it. You can't not become emotional when you realize the impact that it has on your life and most likely the impact on others. So for you, I gotta ask, where did this title come from? Am I spot on here in kind of this description? I mean, what is the emotional entrepreneur and why now was the time that you had to get this out?
So my first career goal, the first time that I ever remember sitting with myself and dreaming of a future version of what I could be in this world was when I was maybe 6, 7, or 8. And the dream was to be an author. And usually when I have a career dream, kind of post, I suppose, age 22, I pretty much just go after it really, really quick. And I don't think that much, which I think is one of my superpowers. But when it comes to a book, obviously there has to be a certain amount of life experience lived. You have to come up with a message that you feel really strongly about, et cetera. And so I, had my first depressive episode at 14 and was formally diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 when I was 20. And,
What is the
I
type
was,
2 right there? I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yeah.
but I would love to just get a little bit more clear on that.
Yeah, so type 1 leans more towards mania and type 2 leans more towards depression. So I only had hypomania versus full on mania. I was mostly on the depressive side of things when my mood swinged. But when I was diagnosed, I dropped out of college. I tried to be, a gelato scooper, a waitress, minimum wage jobs, and sorry, not even waitress, hostess. And I just couldn't keep them. I wasn't able to function in society. And my parents and my, now husband, then boyfriend, and my loved ones were really concerned about what kind of future I would have and what I could really be capable of and hold, knowing that I had a lot to give and offer, yet my illness was really standing in the way of me being proactive in my life and actually, undertaking responsibility and doing all the things it takes to live out your dreams, or, I'm sure in their mind, just get a job, right? And so, it wasn't until I found entrepreneurship at the age of 22, I was sitting with a friend and I asked her if she wanted to start a magazine with me. And she said yes. We were just going to print it at Kinko's. It was going to be an arts and crafts project that we were going to pass out to like 10 of our friends. And something in my mind just switched. I mean, I went home and obsessively researched. Then I had meetings with all of these top printers in the area. Then I got a quote. Now I'm raising 10K on Kickstarter. All of a sudden, before I know it, we've had 3 issues. The second, a national distributor picked us up. The third, Barnes & Noble emailed me to pick it up. And Halsey, the musician, was on our cover. And we shot it in someone's garage,
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with Halsey. She is amazing.
She is
She's
amazing.
so good.
She's
Oh my
very
gosh,
good.
she's so talented. Holy crap.
Yeah, so we got her right as she was exploding, and something changed within me. And I went from the girl who couldn't handle responsibility and couldn't live in society, this college dropout, mentally ill, woman, I suppose at that time, more of a girl than a woman. And when I found entrepreneurship, suddenly I was the woman who could overfunction. I was the girl who could go after it. And I recognized that entrepreneurship has high highs and low lows, just like my disorder does. And since I'd been in therapy since 14, I also recognized that entrepreneurship is the biggest personal development game in the world. in the world. I mean, marriage and entrepreneurship, I say if you own a business, it's constantly dealing with anxiety, imposter syndrome, fear of uncertainty, risk, self-motivation, all of the things. And so being an entrepreneur is the only way my body, my soul, my purpose, my spirit knows how to be in this physical world, knows how to succeed, knows how to live out her purpose. And then I recognized, as you know, my entrepreneurial journey took many, many iterations, and I started Scouts Agency and I scaled it 6 figures first year, multiple in the second, and just started growing it and growing it. That all of these women, specifically I say women just because that's most of my community, weren't getting into the game, not because of resources, not because of access to finances or funding, and not because of education. They weren't getting into the game because of fear of anxiety, of fear of who are they, fear of putting themselves out there. Where do I start? All of these emotional roadblocks. And so when I recognize that the reason I'm very successful at Scouts Agency and push through so significantly is because I have so much experiencing, managing, regulating, and being in relationship with my emotions. And so I wrote The Emotional Entrepreneur because it married both of my lives, right? My mental illness and my life as an entrepreneur. But I didn't write it for the mentally ill. It's really I wrote it to women, but it's really for anyone, can read it at any age, etc. But it's 25 emotional and mindset lessons that allow you to persevere within building the business of your dreams. You can read it straight through, or you can pick up, if you're having trouble with a lack mindset versus abundance, if you're having trouble with anxiety that day. So it's just the emotional guidebook to living your dreams, because I don't think that we talk about that part. I mean, you said that you resonated with it immediately. The idea that emotional and entrepreneur, those words haven't been placed together makes no sense to me, because that's all it is.
It really is. Which leads me to my next question here. In the book, you talk about the importance of cultivating emotional independence. And I think if I would have had a little heads up on that, if that could have been in my entrepreneurship crash course, so to speak, for me, 4 years ago now, 4 years ago completely, but I guess 5 if you count the year of my side hustle, right? If I could have had that in some kind of course or this book, then I really do think I would have had a softened blow, so to speak, to it all. Because the second that you go full time yourself, the second that you go all in on your baby, your passion project, but I want to state this for the listener. No shit. Every emotion comes flooding in. All the happy ones, all of the scary ones, all of the ones that you didn't even know existed. So I would love for you to kind of walk us through a little bit more so the person listening now can get that crash course. What do you mean by emotional independence, and how can they prepare for that?
Emotional independence saves my life, first of all. And I don't think, again, that you need a mental illness to benefit from this lesson, in the sense that, I used to outsource my emotions to whoever would listen. So when I was really in the depths of my depression, I would text my dad, I can't do this anymore, you need to pick me up. Or I would text my, then boyfriend, now husband, I need you to leave work because I can't deal with this. Can you make me dinner? Can you stay with me? Whatever it was, my friends and family would drop their lives to come to my rescue. But I didn't realize that wasn't rescuing me. I thought that it was. I thought that if I just say I can't handle it anymore and someone comes to physically be with me, that I could outsource my emotions to them. But in doing that, it robbed me of the chance to work through them myself. It robbed me of the inner strength that I can handle that moment. And it allowed also other people to attempt to save me in places where the only person that can save me is me. And so we talk a lot about being financially independent, et cetera, but being emotionally independent means that when you have an emotion, you feel comfortable and confident and safe enough to feel that emotion and know that you know exactly how to manage it, whether it's allowing yourself to feel it for 2 minutes, whether it's taking a break or going for a walk, whether it's journaling. But when you have emotional independence, you're not looking outside of yourself to be saved from your inner world. You know that you're the only person that can show up in those emotional moments of overwhelm, crisis, whatever it is. And you're the one that's going to hold yourself through those moments. So once I realized that I couldn't just call a friend when I had suicidal ideation, and she would save me because, after doing that how many times, it didn't work, right? I started to reframe my perspective around my emotions, thanks to Glennon Doyle, actually, in one of her chapters in Untamed. She
Phenomenal
says,
work. Yeah, great
oh,
resource.
phenomenal.
I'll put that down in the show notes for everybody. You got to check it out.
Phenomenal. She said when she was getting sober, I believe, that she said, I can't feel this anymore. And I so resonated in that moment, because that's what I would say all the time. And then she realized that she could feel it longer, because she literally 5 seconds had gone by and she was still there and surviving. And so then I started to cultivate all of this evidence. Like, I say I can't handle these emotions and I can't feel them any longer, and yet I continue to every single day. Therefore, I can survive my emotions because I have for the past X amount of years. And so once I had that evidence so beautifully in front of me and could reframe that I wasn't suffering from my emotions, but I was rather surviving them, I started to really think about, how can I take care of me? And this is also, I think in the beginning of someone's journey, either in entrepreneurship or if you're having mental health problems, I think in the beginning, the first roadblock is asking for help and allowing a support system to come in. And I think it's very important to do so. And then you get to a point where I did, where the end work was me. The last 20% was me. I had to show up for myself. So once you can get to a point where you take radical responsibility over your emotional experience, is the point where you feel comfortable with whatever life throws at you, because emotionally, no matter how much it hurts, you got you.
Are you by chance familiar with Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, retired Navy SEAL author?
Just his name, not his work.
Well, this really reminds me of his two pieces of his work, actually. Extreme Ownership is a book where he shares a lot of military experience in training in wartime. And then he gives real life application to how, having to take extreme ownership, radical responsibility for every single area of your life, especially if you're in a leadership position. And then he follows up with a second book called The Dichotomy of Leadership. And I think what you're talking about there reminded me more of Dichotomy of Leadership, because it's this dichotomy of entrepreneurship. We have decided to step out into the unknown. We chose to live a life of our design, but at the same time, we need to learn how to really grasp the meaning of that and everything that comes along with it, and figure out where our strengths and weaknesses are, where we can rely on people for help, because you will need help, but then at the same time, you have to figure it all out your own self. Does that kind of ring a bell? Does that sound kind of spot on, this dichotomy of entrepreneurship?
Yes. And what you said really resonated me when you said, I chose this. So that's actually something I internally tell myself constantly, where I'm feeling overwhelmed, where I'm feeling anxious at work, where maybe a client's unhappy, maybe something I have to put out a fire, et cetera. And you're overwhelmed with anxiety, you're catastrophizing, whatever spiral you're going down. I have to remember that I chose this. And in choosing this, I get to take radical responsibility over the situation that's happening. Another part of the book is that I say entrepreneurship, building a social media feed makes you a social media manager. Building a website makes you a website designer. Securing sales makes you a sales manager. But walking through the fire, through the emotional part, through the dichotomy of, all of that, that's the entrepreneur. That's the entrepreneur. So my definition of an entrepreneur is, how do you handle your emotions in those moments?
And a lot of those emotions we've talked about, but you hit on one word that I can definitely relate to. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to have this, or at least periods of it in your life. And that's anxiety. Total honesty, Scout. I used to, a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, like 3 years ago, for me personally here, that word was I thought was trendy. I used to see it pop up on social media. It was big on YouTube, and everyone's like, something I never told you. I've never shared my anxiety. And it was just kind of this, I'm calling bullshit. But then,
anxiety.
Yeah. And then I realized that I truly did. Then I realized, oh no, wait, Chase, here's how your anxiety manifests. Here's how your anxiety shows up. what it looks like, what it feels like. And then, especially when I stepped into entrepreneurship, I really saw it. And it's honestly, it's a daily shadow. It's a daily dark passenger, like I say, like our ego work. Walk us through a little bit more, if you could. How does anxiety show up for you? How does it show up for the modern entrepreneur? And how did you kind of really navigate those waters?
So for me, anxiety does two things. It either lies to you to keep you safe, or it tells you something's wrong. So getting really in tune with what this feeling is important. And I think sometimes when we are in the midst of intense anxiety, we so often say, I'm just anxious. I'm just anxious. I just have anxiety. And if you can really peel back the layers and go deeper and deeper, you'll always find a root cause. Some people now experience anxiety, on heightened scales versus others. Of course, it's a spectrum of an experience. But for me specifically, anxiety comes, well, I suppose, yeah, it might come in three ways in my business. The first is the good way it comes is when I'm expanding. So when I'm launching this book, let's say, I had so much anxiety. I was putting myself out there in a way I had never done before. However, if I listened to my anxiety, who was actually saying, okay, you're going into unknown territory, so I'm going to perk up real quick to keep you safe, because that's my job. I keep you safe. If I had listened to that anxiety, I wouldn't have expanded. So growth, expansion, up leveling in your business, going to the next level where you're hiring more staff, where you're taking on more clients, where you're raising your prices, where you have more responsibility. Anxiety is going to flare up because it's warning you that you're exiting your comfort zone. In those moments, I thank my anxiety wholeheartedly. It's got my back. It's keeping me safe. And I say, I know what I'm doing and I have to do this anyways. But thank you so much for showing up and indicating to me that I'm about to do something that is not my comfort zone, that I don't know. I'm entering unknown territory. And then there's also the anxiety that comes when you're out of alignment. So for me, for example, if I take on a client, and let me just say this real quick for anyone who has clients, if you feel a gut feeling on that sales call, don't take the client. You know best. You know if it's a fit immediately. So sometimes anxiety will come up if I'm, okay, I'll take the client, like I'm sure it'll be fine. And then every time they email me, it's like a gut punch, right? Or if they're upset, it's a gut punch. And I just can't, it exaggerates because my anxiety is telling me, hey, you're not supposed to be representing or working with this person. This isn't in alignment for how you do things. This is an alignment for the energy you want to bring into your business. So it can tell you when you're out of alignment. Some, I suppose, just general fears that anxiety brings me in my business. Honestly, most of it's financial, which I really try hard to combat. I really do. And I think I've gotten a lot better at it. I have a full-time staff of 4 people that my business supports. And in that, the financial responsibility of running a ship it gives me a lot of anxiety. That's probably the area that most flares up. I've really worked hard on my anxiety not flaring up so much when a client is disappointed or dissatisfied, because I'm a people pleaser and that's bound to happen in the client service industry. So I would say general, that like demon that you talked about, that's kind of always there. It's the financial anxiety for me.
Let's go there a little bit if we could.
Yeah.
This is actually very timely for me. I did a live last week as we're recording here in August 2021, and I put up a post on Instagram all about scarcity mindset versus abundancy.
Mm-hmm.
Financial, 2 little mindset hacks, if you will, that really, the more and more I leaned into them, the gut check you were talking about, it really helped change my money mindset. First of all, I want to reference one book that really helped a lot. I read about 2 years ago, Jen Sincero's "You're a Badass at Making Money."
Oh, I haven't read that one yet. I read her other one. Yeah.
You Are a Badass, and then she had like a spinoff all around
Yeah.
finances. I'll link that down in the show notes as well. Actually, I really recommend the Audible because she reads it and she does quite a few little spinoffs, and just it's really powerful. And I could really resonate and hear the pain when she was talking about, where's my next client coming from? How am I going to pay rent? what should I do? Should I pivot in my business? Should I keep all these things? So if you're struggling, if you're listening right now and money mindset is something that you're struggling with and or you just want to improve, even if you think you're good, it'll shine a light. I'll link that down in the show notes. But these two hacks, and I would love to share them with you and get your feedback. As an entrepreneur, even just if you have a 9 to 5, anybody, if you are here to make a living, which we all are, if you can lean into these two things of I am in control of the money that comes in and I am in control of the money that goes out. And how I kind of painted that picture was if I'm in control of the money that goes out, that's kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe how much this thing costs. Or I look at my bank statement, you just see, you see negatives, you see money going out, money going out, money going out. And so what I do is, in order to help with that, is I'll have days to where I control, to the best of my ability, all the money that goes out. I don't get coffee, I don't get lunch, I don't get dinner, I don't spend any money. I only repurpose content here, right? I only go to the coffee I already have. I go to the leftovers I already have. And then when it comes to I'm in control to making as much money as I want, I'm in control to how much money can come into my life. That really puts the positive pressure and the creativity hat on me of what new offer can I create? Where can I touch base with current clientele that I have, current products that I offer, services that I offer, and stir the pot there? Where can I make a new sale? Where can I create a new value piece? If I want an extra $500 this month or $5,000, what can I create of that value? And it really gets me creative and really gets me thinking. And that's honestly how I have some of the best days, weeks, months in my businesses. How do those two land on you? Does that kind of paint a familiar picture with you as you're navigating this financial mindset and growing your business?
It kind of does. It kind of does. I think the control part for me personally, has a negative connotation to the way I view money. There's two things here. For me, I can see how those two things, bringing it back to radical responsibility over your reality and what's going on. And they're so incredibly true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And for me, when I get into a lack mindset, I actually have to step out of control because I think I'm acting on nervous, desperate energy that isn't great for sales. And I actually have to step into a trusting mode. And when I trust that my life is working out, when I trust that there's money available, when I trust that there's an endless flow of clients, that's what actually gets my creative cap going on what can I do here. So it's just a matter of semantics, I think. So for me, it's the trust. And then there's something else that you said that I think is so beautiful about entrepreneurship, and something that I was speaking to someone yesterday, a loved one of mine. They were talking about how when they built the house, they had a budget, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to stay in the budget based off the salary. And I said, whoa, as entrepreneurs, we have that control. We have that power. He was asking me like if, something about my budget with my husband. And I said, listen, if I need an extra 2K, I'm a business owner. I can figure it out.
I can go make that 2K.
I can go make that 2K real quick. So I think that's so powerful that we all have control over our finances, whether we're entrepreneurs or not. But if you are an entrepreneur, asking yourself that question, what control do I have, or what trust do I have that money is going to come into me, getting that creative thinking cap on, because we get to, as entrepreneurs, kind of bend and extend and have this really intense fluidity with money that isn't so rigid like the 9 to 5 is, which I think is really beautiful. And in that fluidity can come obviously a lot of money coming in, or you can have the months where it's not, you get both sides of the stick. But
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think what you said, that exercise is really great for people who especially feel like they're a victim to the flow of their money, and as if like these types of people make money and I don't make money, it assumes that radical responsibility over your situation and then puts you in the active driver's seat to create the life you want to create.
Yeah. I love what you just said right there about these types of people. Those types of people are the ones that make that amount of money. That could not be more true. And the show is about you, but I got to give a little more backstory here about my money mindset.
No, please do.
So years and years ago, quick little backstory. After I got out of the military, I went to school, and I was kind of having a few glorified part-time jobs here and there, and I was very, very comfortable. I was living off of my Army retirement. I had these part-time jobs. I was comfortable, and I'll never forget my then girlfriend, my now wife, quite literally, Scout, I think within maybe like the first 30, 90 days of us dating, she pointed something out at me that really lit a fire under my ass about money mindset and just honestly showing me my true potential of earning, of fulfillment, of value. She was like, don't you, what about like, you ever want to make like $100,000 or, what are your dreams and goals? And we got very real very fast. And I'll never forget. I said to her, I was like, I mean, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. Like those are the only types of people that make that amount of money. Me, Chase Tuning. It came down when you really look at it, when we make statements like that in our kind of
Mm.
association to finances and definitely how we show up in our business and in our jobs, our value, our level of income and income potential is very, very closely tied to an identity aspect. I am not that type of person. I didn't go to this school. I didn't go to this course. I'm not him, her, whatever. And that was all bullshit. I look back now and I'm just like, oh, I just want to like go pet that Chase's head. I just want to, oh, bless his little heart.
It's so true. One, I have a very similar relationship to my husband. We got real, the exact same amount, and he lit a fire under my ass to take radical responsibility over my emotional state and what was possible with my emotional state. So I just love that your wife did that for you. And it's so true that we have this, I suppose, ceilings that we self-impose on ourselves, especially when it comes to money. If anyone's listening, I never graduated college. I'm a college dropout. I've never had a real job, and I'm bipolar, guys. Okay. Like, and to be honest, I've never made more money in my life, and I support my husband and myself, who's getting a PhD. Like, I have a business with four
Wow.
women. These things
Claps for you. That's amazing.
so possible if you break through the limiting lies that you're telling to yourself. They're just lies.
And here to show the other side of the coin, I'm someone who went to undergrad, went to grad school, got all the certifications and letters after his name. And I cannot even begin to tell you where my degrees are. I literally don't even know if I ever received my master's. I think it got mixed up in the mail, an old address. And yeah, I've never been working out of more fulfillment and value. I've never made more money now. And I've never been more happy about the work that I do compared to, years ago with that old identity, old fixed income mindset and that 9 to 5 that I had.
My money mindset came from 6 months into my business. I hired an employee and I signed a lease the same month. And my clients were only month to month because I was too afraid that no one would sign with me if I made them sign a 3, 4, 6 month contract. I thought that the only way people would give me money is if they felt as if they had an out, if they felt as if they weren't committed to me. And I actually hired my best friend at the time. We had this gorgeous office in Little Italy, San Diego. It was like, floor to ceiling windows, concrete loft, dream. And then I lost like 4 big clients, not even because, they left on amazing terms. Some came back later just because life happened and we had a month-to-month contract and that's how they could do things. And all of a sudden I brought on this girl too, and we were supposed to replenish her roster so I could pay her. And so for all of Q4 on my first year with Scott's agency, I was paying myself like $2, maybe $3,000 a month. And I was not honest with my husband about the realities of that because I thought, oh, I'll just get all the clients back next month. And it wasn't happening. And I, in those moments, I started to panic and I started to be afraid and I started to act out of anxiety and I started to not take empowered action towards calling in new clients. And it was then that I started developing this intense lack mindset of this could all dry up if I don't have enough clients. And then that turned into, is there a lack of clients out there in the world? And it sounds so simplistic and a lot more went into this, but I was in a mastermind and I recognized that my thought patterns were limiting. And then I changed it to this abundant mindset and I started to trust that there are so many people out there who can afford to work with me, who want to work with me, who can commit to working with me on a 3, 4, 6 month contract. And once I settled and did that meditation and calmed my fears and calmed my anxiety, January 2020, we came out and I doubled my previous revenue from before I lost those clients because I was going into sales emails without this attachment, without this like, you need to sign with me or my business will go under. Even if the person on the other end doesn't hang up and is like, I think that girl's business is going down, she sounds crazy. There's something about the way you present yourself if you are in an abundant, trustful energy versus this lack, desperate, anxious energy. So for me, it's always making sure that I'm operating with the trust and understanding that there is a plethora of clients that will work with me, that will pay my increased raises, that will sign longer contracts, et cetera. And once you start telling yourself that and living in that, then you actually open yourself up to do that versus if you're still sitting in this limiting, no one's going to sign with me, or I'm not someone that makes that kind of money. You don't actually take steps to proving that wrong.
Cannot agree more. I cannot agree more. And I feel like I could make a whole sub podcast here about this, the money mindset aspect of entrepreneurship and just in general. But I'm curious, as you were going through the book, I'm sure you were writing about things that you knew, that you felt confident in, sharing. But what about this book? What about pouring out your experience as an emotional entrepreneur did you not expect to write about? What maybe was reflected back to you that you thought was dead and gone, or you had no idea was there? What did this writing experience kind of mirror back to you?
To be honest, it was the easiest thing I've ever done. Um, I wrote it in a month and a half.
Oh,
I
what an
it,
asshole. This
I know.
I've been sitting on mine for like 2 years, but
I know, but
it's amazing though.
everything else in my life I have poured out tediously.
Mm.
I have grinded. I have hustled. I have gone against the uncomfortable emotions and the challenges and the this and the that and the perseverance and all of that stuff. In that sense, this book, and I have a feeling the next one's not going to be like this for me. This book poured out, just poured. And that gave me some doubt. That gave me some, is it good? Because I
Yeah,
didn't
like this
struggle
is
to
too
make it.
easy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can things be this easy when you're creating something? And I think it was so easy for me because I didn't look at the writing process like a business. So in that sense, it was something that I enjoyed. Writing is my first talent, my first love, my first creative expression. I am also naturally a very fast writer. I'm a very fast typer. Last time I checked 7 years ago, I can type over 120 words a minute. And
Oof,
so,
all right.
yeah, so when I write, my mind naturally moves very, very, very quickly. So this book, writing it was so easy. And that stopped and said, where else in my life can things be easy and successful? Where else can things flow a little bit more? Where else can things just kind of be effortless? I think that in the effortless of writing this comes 15 years of suffering and life experience that got me to the point where I felt so comfortable in these lessons and stood behind them so significantly. I had talked about them on Okay Sis Podcast. I had talked about it with friends, these kind of principles. And so by the time it came to write the book, it did just pour out of me. And so in that way, it started making me question other aspects of my life. Where am I making things hard for myself? Where can I dedicate my time to more of my zone of genius where things flow easily? And where are the areas where things don't flow? Because we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. And in the areas that I don't flow and it's a little more tedious and I hit more resistance and it takes me longer, where can I outsource to someone who that comes super easy to? And so that started having me think about, how do I run my business? What are the tasks that I'm doing every day? And how can my team be in their zone where things come naturally to them, if that makes sense? So it was shocking because nothing in my life has been, I feel like, that easy. And I wondered if maybe people were like, whoa, you wrote a book? Wow. And I was like, but I didn't feel it because it wasn't a struggle. And that's something I got to work on inside. I think it's something we all have to work on. We all think that things only get to be celebrated if it's hard, right? So I know that's kind of an asshole answer, but it's the truth.
It's your truth and it's all you can share. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I debated why it felt so easy, but maybe it's just because I was literally supposed to write this book.
What are you most excited for in the future of entrepreneurship now that you are on the other side of this book, now that you are years into your business, and I'm sure connecting to so many other young and up and
Mhm.
coming entrepreneurs, male, female alike? I personally think that the future is entrepreneurship. And that may quite literally be you are running a business or businesses, or it's just the entrepreneur mindset. You know, it's
Mhm.
if you can tap into that level of detachment and creativity and being in tune with your emotions so that you can better show up for your life and your job and just thinking outside of the box to create more value, create more impact. That doesn't have to be your business. You can support another great organization for sure. But what are you most excited for when it comes to emotions and entrepreneurship?
I think I'll start with the entrepreneurship side. What I'm most excited about, and I'll say it very unapologetically, is women. Can I cuss on this show?
Hell yeah. Fuck
Okay.
yeah.
Women making a fuck ton of money. Like a fuck ton of money. I want this next generation of women to just rein it in.
Yeah.
I think we've done the women empowerment, the women in business, and like, but the conversation, I didn't know we would talk so much about money mindset, but the conversation around women generating wealth, women building equity, et cetera, is so exciting to me. And I think it's new territory. I think, women like Rachel Rogers, We Should All Be Millionaires, wrote an incredible book about it. And so, that goes with like women being down to everything, like women being wealthy so that they can outsource around their personal lives and not feel bad about it, right? There's so much that goes into that. So that's what I'm really excited about, watching women break through money mindsets to attract wealth, to build wealth, and to make the world a better place. I think that's really what excites me. And then on the emotional side, I think it's just opening up conversations for all of us to live within this masculine framework of entrepreneurship and yet get in touch with the reality of us being human beings and understanding that that's what makes our business special. That's what gets our business going and growing and flourishing and networking and all the things. So I think it's just this, mental health awareness is a very trendy buzzword thing right now, which when I was diagnosed, it was nowhere near in the mainstream. So I'm so grateful that people are talking about it because I didn't know where to turn to when I was diagnosed. But I think that there's just this baseline level that I would love people to acknowledge in themselves, is that they're emotional. It doesn't have to be mental health or mental illness, et cetera, but it's just, what are your relationships to your emotions and how can you use them to propel your life forward and feel fulfilled every single day? So it's people making emotional decisions towards fulfillment and women making a fuck ton of money.
I support all the above. Thank you for your candor there. Absolutely. And speaking of moving forward, again, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, that's exactly what the show is all about here. And bringing awareness to these key areas of our life, of our business, of our health and wellness is exactly what I try to do day in, day out, excuse me, in my life. And then certainly in the content here. And, I'm going to say first and foremost, again, congratulations.
Thank
Also,
you.
thank you so much for coming on here and talking more about this truly, not to keep beating a dead horse here, emotional experience, no doubt that you had writing this book, but a good emotional. And that's a big kind of bow I want to put on this conversation here, is that the word emotional doesn't have to just mean, and it never did. We just attached meaning to it
Yes.
of the bad, the negative, of the things we're not supposed to feel. Like being emotional happens to us all damn day. It's just
Literally, I walk outside and I put on Whitney Houston and I look at a tree and I cry. And I'm like, oh man, life's powerful. And I'm just crying. And then I'm like so
Mm,
grateful that I feel so deeply. And you're so right. I'm so happy you said that.
mm.
I really am, because emotions do get a bad rep. But there is a whole spectrum of really, really great ones that we experience.
They are all teachers. They're all teachers. Some are just, they come in versions that look more appealing. They come in more friendly versions, figures, shapes, sensations, resonances, energy, memories, even tactile. But I promise you, if you can just adopt the philosophy or begin to adopt the philosophy that every emotion, every experience, good, bad, ugly, any part of that spectrum is there to teach you something. If you can remember that, then you will find the lesson inside of it. And that brings me to my final question here, that could not be more the crux of what I say living a life ever forward is all about. It's, the obstacle is the way, how to turn your adversities into an advantage. It's finding the lesson in the sometimes amazing situation, but also the shit sandwiches that life gives us sometimes. So what does that mean to you, Scout? When you hear those two words, how would you say you live a life ever forward?
I think it's mostly my commitment to myself, and not my commitment to myself in the warm, fuzzy, good stuff, but also my commitment to my life in its entirety. So it's really unconditionally loving my life no matter what. My dog passed away earlier this year, very unexpectedly. I was out of town
I'm
and
so sorry.
Okay. I
Been
was
there.
walking. It's hard. Yeah. She was my first dog with me through my diagnosis, and just really meant a lot. And my husband and I took a walk outside to just be in the moment. And she had passed. And I remember thinking, I'm so grateful I'm alive. I'm so grateful because if I'm feeling this right now, it's because I have things in my life that are worth feeling this way about when I lose them. And I remember sitting in such grief. Of course, I wanted her back, but I said, I have to love life in this moment. Like, I can't just love my life when it's going great and hate it when it's not. That's not how you treat your spouse. That's not how you treat your best friend. That's not how you treat your children. You love them unconditionally, yet we're so quick to only love our lives when things are going well. And so, living an ever forward life is that you move through what happens to you every single day with a gratitude for the life that you live, and with a full acceptance that it's a spectrum, that it's going to be an emotional spectrum, that it's going to be an experiential spectrum. But for me, living an ever forward life means unconditionally loving my life no matter the situation I'm in.
I really, really like and appreciate that answer.
Thank you.
That was very, very honest. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, well, Scout, it's been a pleasure having you on the show here. If anybody's a podcaster out there and you're looking for some phenomenal guests, she always has a phenomenal lineup.
Thank you.
Quite a few past guests here have been from your agency. So for that, I thank you again. Anything else before we wrap up here? Of course, we're going to have your information. People can get the book. It's all going to be linked down in the show notes. Where can they go right now, maybe to connect with you more and learn more about you and the emotional entrepreneur?
Instagram's the best place, at Scout Sobel. In my bio, I have links to, my agency, the book, my podcasts, email, DM, website, all that good stuff. So that's probably the best place to come hang.
Cool. Scout, thank you again so much.
Thank you.